Really excited today to get into this and talk about selling high volume hospitality venues. And of course, this event is sponsored by Green Payments. We got Mr. Ben Ross right here. How you doing today, Ben?
How are you doing, James?
Doing good. So we're going to interview Ben in a little bit. We got Jeff here as well from Union that we're going to interview here in a little bit. And so I'll kind of unmute them here in just a bit. For right now, I want to talk to you all. I want to kind of zoom out for a second before we dig into this very specific vertical of high volume hospitality venues. And I want to talk about some of the larger trends that we're seeing in the industry. I thought it might be interesting to just share kind of a interesting story. So I was talking to a very experienced merchant services agent about maybe a few days ago. And I was talking to him because he's one of our clients on the lead generation side. So we do telemarketing leads that are processor agnostic, exclusive telemarketing leads. And I was talking to him about how things were going. And one of the things he said to me was, he's like, hey, do me a favor and stop calling dentists. I don't want any leads for dentists. And I was like, I get it. Like, okay, And what he said next really kind of shocked me. And I may get the numbers off a little bit here, but bear with me here. But it basically, he told me, he said, I used to have like within like, I think it was a year or two ago, he had 250 dentists that were his merchants. And he said that today he has like less than 20. So he lost 90% of his clients in this one vertical, in the dentist vertical, over the course of, again, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was something like 12 to 24 months. And I'm like, let's zoom out a second. Like, forget about leads for a minute. Like, that's insane. You lost like 90% of these, like a very profitable portfolio. What happened? And he's like, well, integrated payments happened. They all switched to one of these ERP systems or business management systems. And, he wasn't able to integrate with these companies. And in that moment, I probably didn't say the most encouraging words, because what I said was, I said, well, you do realize that every vertical you're currently targeting will be like that in 5 years, right? And, there was a pause for a moment. and then he was like, yeah, and I just find it so interesting that we all, I think, collectively understand that. Like, I think we all agree with that statement, to some extent, that every vertical we're targeting, I mean, it's like, it's going to go to integrated payments, and the integrated payments is going to be integrated with software that is so much more valuable than just standalone payments, that payment processing is going to be relegated to a feature of software. So that's where we're going. So I think it's really important when we start an event like this to make sure we're all kind of on the same page and understand that this is where it's going. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to sit back and say, well, I guess I'll just keep jumping from one vertical to another and trying to sell my standalone terminals and my virtual terminals. And as a vertical gets really integrated, then I guess, oh, well, I guess I can't sell them, and I'm just going to lose those accounts. I guess I'll move to the next vertical. I mean, you can play hopscotch for a few years if you want, or the other option would be you could say, wait a minute, let me actually go on the offensive. Instead of playing defense, let me say, well, I think I can provide a better service. I think I could do, let's say we go after high volume hospitality venues and we say, we're going to beat Toast. We're going to provide a better solution. And we're also going to have fantastic service. Like you have to go on the offense. I feel like, most people I talk to in the industry today are in some combination of either it's like they're playing defense or they're like waiting for something magical to happen. I don't know what we're waiting for, but in order to sell payment processing today and to sell merchants, we have to sell vertical specific software solutions. That's where we're at. That's our current reality. And the other thing I want to throw out there that's a really interesting thing that our big competitors here just have not caught on to yet, and that's differential pricing. Um, Toast and Square, have some version of differential pricing, but it's not something they promote. It's, in my opinion, not compliant. It's certainly not user-friendly. And so that's not a big part of their value proposition. So we can go to market and say, we have this, and our competitor doesn't, or at least they're not implementing it for you correctly. And so we have these trends. And I think what's so interesting to me is that much of the industry right now is kind of this backpedaling and, well, this is just the way it is. I really hope that those of you on this event today are going to look at this reality and say, well, actually, we don't plan to just kind of let things slide for the next 4 years until we go out of business. Instead, we're going to choose some verticals and say, let's dive into this vertical. Those of you that are on this event, I'm assuming for many of you, you look at high volume hospitality venues as a potential merchant account that you can go after. And so what I'm excited to show you today is that there is a way to go on the offense. And I'm excited to have Green Payments joining. I'm excited to have Union joining because I wanted to show you today two things. One is, of course, we're going to talk about selling these high volume venues, but I think even more importantly than that, I want the industry to see, as you maybe are watching this replay on YouTube or listening on the podcast, I want you to see what this is supposed to look like. If we want to go forward and we want to be profitable and we want to grow, then we're going to have this new type of ISO or payments company like Green Payments that is sitting in the middle and adding value by establishing these relationships with technology companies like Union, right? And so we have really good technology. And this is the thing, there is really good technology out there that will beat Toast all day long, that will beat Square all day long. It's not like these companies have some kind of stranglehold on great technology. I mean, quite the contrary. They're actually very generalistic. And Toast Toast is trying to be a great solution for a food truck and for a bar that does $500,000 a month. Well, that's really not possible. Like, those are very different things. So as a result, they're really stretched and trying to make all these features, whereas there actually are really fantastic software companies that go after these various like sub verticals. And so the technology is there. And then we have all these 1099s, all of you that are listening that are like, hey, I'm out in my community and I know everybody and I'm going to go sell everybody. Well, what you need is somebody in the middle, like a Green Payments, that's putting these things together and making a really, really good program for you. Okay. So having said all of that, that's kind of my, I'm off of my soapbox now. That's just my, I've talked to, it's interesting. I think in the last 2 weeks, I think I've had a Zoom with like 75 agents and small ISOs because, again, of the lead generation program. I was doing my kind of follow up of how that's going. And it's just been super interesting I love having all those conversations to like get a feel for the industry and how we're all doing. And again, I think overall, my overall feeling on it is that I feel like most people are kind of like, well, I know that selling these generalized payment solutions is not best, but that's the thing I know how to do right now. And I get that. I understand that it's very challenging, but I think the idea is you look at any of these avenues. Some of you might say, well, I jumped on the event, James, but selling restaurants, oh, I don't know. It's like, well, like it's like we have to take a stand somewhere. Like somewhere you got to say, okay, well, you know what? Like high volume hospitality venues, very profitable, like insanely profitable. You sell them on dual pricing. It's like huge. Technology exists that's fantastic with Union. You have a processing partner with Green Payments that's going to give you residual income. I mean, that's it. Like that's what else do we want, right? Like now we got to go sell it. And I know it's different. It's not the normal sale maybe for some of you, but it's like, this is where we're at now and we got to take a stand and we got to go sell it. So, all right. So enough said about that. So with all that being said, I'm going to introduce Jeff. So Jeff, if you want to get your camera and your audio turned on here, first of all, introduce yourself, tell us what you do. And then once you give us that information, follow that up with what is a high volume hospitality venue? So our audience has some idea what we're talking about today.
Sure. Thank you. Jeff Sanders, been in the payment and then POS space for a little over 21 years now. So have seen it, have been a part of it, frontline soldier trying to sell into restaurants, back in the day when I started in payments in 2003. So totally can relate and understand what it takes to build a great portfolio, and also can relate with a gentleman that lost 90% of that due to vertical, some level of CRM or ISV coming in to take it, right? So yeah, we do a great job, here at Union in keeping ourselves open and open architecture to payment processors, and really led by me. So what do I do? Handle ISO channels, which I'm pretty excited to say the majority of the velocity that we're seeing here at Union is coming through channel partnership. So we are not slowing down on that. I remember one Facebook page asking, what our thoughts were on whether we double down at this point or throttle back. We're doubling down on that, across the country. So thanks again on behalf of Green Payments as well for inviting us to meet you, James. But yeah, that is happening across the country. And so I handle the channel, the ISO channel across the country just to continue to build on that. Give them the sales engineers that they deserve to make sure that that process is smooth, from demo and installation. I know we'll get into that. So ideal client profile for Union would be what we call high volume hospitality. And just kind of some real quick ways of categorizing that, would be, do they have a full liquor license? That's kind of like check mark number one for Union. Full liquor license, then we can do business. They got booze, we do business, kind of our little tagline, right? And then you're looking for high volume. So high volume, probably sits north of $100,000 a month in processing revenue. Sure, we have plenty of them, that could be an awesome dive bar in Astoria, New York, that's doing 50 to 75. We're not walking away from those business opportunities because they're great for us too. But majority of our portfolio probably sits at about $250,000 a month in processing revenue across the country. So high volume, meaning that on the processing side. And then what does it look like? There's some fun ones that are out there. Pickleball seems to be picking up everywhere. But these bars are not, post-COVID, there's a lot of creative energy going into their venue. From New York City and all the European huts that are out on the street that still are out on the street, for people to get an outdoor dining experience in New York City when it was a concrete jungle for as long as I've been alive. So it's fun, right? And then you go to areas where there's some space, pickleball's huge. And we just brought on a couple of venues that do, bowling and football mix. Like, it's just some really cool things. When you think, do they own the night? Is it fun? Are they open till 2 a.m.? Right? These are things that I think about when I target those high volume hospitality, because those hours between 11 and 2 a.m. is probably 60% of their overall revenue.
Yeah. Right.
Hopefully that answers the question, the high volume.
I think so. Yeah. And I just think, like you said, there's such a variety, you know what I mean, of different venues that would be great. Event spaces are there's a lot of stuff that's really, really unique right now. So it's awesome. Cool. Okay. So I think one of the big questions that agents have is that, when I walk into a retail store, I walk into a pizza shop, right? I know what to say. You know what I mean? I go in and I'm like, hey, we can eliminate your processing fees, or hey, we have this Clover or whatever, right? So what is the elevator pitch? So I walk into a high volume venue and I'm like, hey, I think this might be a good spot for Union. And I walk in, I have my opportunity to speak to the owner or the manager, the decision maker. What do I say?
Yeah, I think you get ready before you even walk in the door with kind of knowing what you're up against, right? So the best prospecting I did was just know what they're on. What are they accustomed to? What are you walking in there to try to show value above, right? Our biggest rips right now, you mentioned one is Toast. And the second one is still the legacy, Head by Aloha, right? I mean, that's a very popular product across the country. They had absolute dominance for multi-decades, right? And so, yeah, there's still a heavy product that's in market. And the one thing about Union, I will say, we needed to make sure that we were par or better when it came to ripping out that ecosystem, right? So the first thing that you need when you walk into prospect to somebody is have confidence that the product you're walking in with can satisfy the needs of the venue. And I think why most, and I'll put myself in a category, ISOs or agents would shy from hospitality is because they just didn't have the product that they could get behind, right? And if they did, because the offer was great, you did a dual pricing, you saved $100,000 venue, $2,500 a month, you're looking at a $30,000 annual reduction in card fees. Yeah, I'll take on whatever you got for that, right? And then unfortunately, it outlives its life, right? Where now Toast is coming in, or somebody's coming in the back door going, oh, but it does it do this? And oh, but it does it do this? And so that's where it just got exhausting. And agents running in with a product and they placed it and it looks good, it feels good, maybe even cover the hardware, because some of them will, say they made an investment in the venue, and then in a mere 6 months, the venue's looking for something else, or maybe even 30 days. Right. So the beauty for us is that we really truly get to go in knowing that we've got a Ferrari and everybody wants it. Right. And yet it's priced very moderately as well. Right. So we're not going in there going, you need to, get your checkbook out for a Rolls Royce here or for a Ferrari. Right. We're going in right where Toast is, and actually about half of that. Right. When you do about a 24 or 36 month return on investment from a Toast versus Union. So I think preparing for it, knowing what you're up against first, understanding what they're on and where are the bells and whistles. And so an easy one simply is how do you reward your guest? I go right for the jugular. Right. And they're like, well, great service and great food. Awesome. That's what they come here for. But what are you doing for them? Loyalty program setup or, something like that. our goal is to drive revenue. And so when we go in there truly with knowing apple to apple, bean counter to bean counter, we got that covered. Aloha, come to Union, we got that covered. The nuances that you guys may or may not think about, right? Like peer-to-peer replication is a real quick one, which is so important to the market. If you got 14 terminals and the Wi-Fi goes down, does terminal 14 talk to terminal 1 in a nanosecond? If the answer is no, you just crippled that high volume hospitality venue.
Yeah.
Don't bring in a product that doesn't have peer-to-peer replication and a Wi-Fi outage. Simple, right? The littlest things, like the most rudimentary things we got to think about. And once you've got that, then what else are you offering? Why are you selling it? It said straight to Alex Broker, our CEO, I've never wanted to sell point of sale. And so I don't, right? We sell a venue operating system. It's very different than a POS. So when you think POS, you think cabling, you think structure, you think breakage, you think SaaS, you think hardware costs, you think all these things that come along with what a POS is. I've got a venue that's got a single terminal that runs 1,200 transactions on a Saturday through a single terminal with a patio that's probably 4 or 5 city blocks in New York City and crushes it on one terminal at $79 a month per month. Come on, right? You don't need all of this heavy old school architecture. And then every guest that goes to that venue that taps a little puck like this, right? Little dog and pony show here, I love it, right? Tap for your digital menu, tap for some level of reward. We automatically will push a brand redemption opportunity where, let's say you're a margarita guy and, let's say Cinco de Mayo, they're going in for a margarita. They're a Jose Cuervo guy that tries to Mi Campo, and because they try to Mi Campo, they got $5 or $7 off their tab paid by Union. And when we do that, that check, James, goes up by 70% across our portfolio. A $5 to $7 reward turns into a 70% lift of check value, which also increases residual value if you're counting the pennies on the processing side.
Right.
So all we want to do is drive revenue, which just tapping this and taking a look at something digitally is going to lift by 28% across our portfolio. Just a mere fact of seeing a digital menu and maybe placing that first round of drinks and having me come over and go, James, welcome back. Can I get you something to eat? Kitchen's running about 25 minutes. Right. So still having that hospitality feel, still getting your name, still calling you out if there's something else I can get for you because you're enjoying your stay at the venue. But because we were able to get them something digital, we increased by 28%. And then if we actually tied in a reward, instead of you having a Jameson, you tried a proper 12 because it was a reward value that we had on that digital menu, your check just went up 70%. Why wouldn't they want to know what technology is in the market to help them operate the way that they should in the digital world today?
So it sounds like elevator pitch for this is, number one, we're increasing revenue. We're doing that through rewards that are paid for by Union to promote certain brands and things of that nature.
Yep.
Right. And then we have a venue operating system, not just a point of sale system. This is something that's going to run their entire business. And so if they could increase their revenue by between 30 to 70% per order, is that something that they'd want to check out?
Sure.
Right.
And what got really popular with Clover and others, right, especially with Toast, has been the handheld game.
Yes.
Right. You have a great handheld. And that's something that was probably the Achilles heel on Aloha for so many years.
Yes.
Had this Orderman that was such a beautiful little device, but it never took payments. It's like, and it even had the slit for it to swipe your card on it, but it just never worked.
It never worked.
Right. What are we doing? Anywho, we decided to ramp up the technology and we wanted to give the venues what they want. And so if they're buying and they say, wow, that device has a really cool handheld, I'm going to buy that device because of it. We decided to build it all the way down to the iPhone. So when the U.S. population runs 90% on iOS versus Android, sorry for the green bubble people that might be on the call, when you're running 90% of every kid, and I can call them that, I've got kids that are on it, they're coming into hospitality looking to become a great bartender or server, operating on an iOS, right, which is Apple. They know how to use it already,
right? And
so we drove this thing all the way down to the iPhone. So good luck on your Android Toast devices that end of life pretty often. We've got POS on the iPhone.
Got it. Awesome. Love it. Okay. So, all right. So moving past the pitch, they go in, they make this pitch. Now, obviously the 1099 agent, even after they go through the free training that I'm going to present here in a little bit,
Sure.
they're probably not ready to sell a Union POS system or to demo a Union POS system, right?
Sure.
So talk a little bit about, and we'll talk to Ben here in a minute about the process of kind of screening and making sure we're doing the demo for the right business. But assuming we get on the demo with the right business, give them a little flavor of like what to expect on these demos. What are you guys highlighting? How does the demo typically work?
Yeah, and I would say, there's probably two answers there. One, is it in a major metro where we may have feet on the street? And if it's in a major metro like a New York City, or we'll call Texas its own metro, California, we may have union sales engineers in the street that can actually run that demo in person, right? So there could be a metro that you're in that we may be able to do that with you, for you, alongside you. If it's not, then yeah, I've got a team of sales engineers that know the system inside and out. CJ would probably be one of my top. That's got about 10 years with Union. Colin right behind him with about 4 years with Union. Myself, every once in a while, will pop on based on velocity with a little over 5 years. So the people that are actually hosting, these demos with you know the product inside and out, and that's important, right? It's one thing to have a hourly paid employee that kind of knows it and gets asked the hard questions, and you brought in a sales engineer that doesn't know how to answer it. You're going to lose the credibility in that deal pretty quickly. So we don't want that to happen to you. So both of those are done, through my team to figure out exactly where it is. And a great example of that with Green Payments being on here, they requested a demo tomorrow and in mid-Jersey, and I've got a rep from Philly coming up to take care of that tomorrow in person versus what they thought would have been a Zoom demo, but is able to clear it to get the individual there in person. So, we're going to do everything we can to get the product in their hands, but we do a pretty decent job ahead of time. And James probably didn't answer that question. We've already scoured the internet. We've Yelped them. We've taken a look at the social media. We understand whether karaoke or trivia matters to them, right? So the things that, we want to prepare for. So when we actually host that demo, we are ahead of the game. We understand what their questions are going to be before they even ask them, because we've done this a few times. And so I think that's also important, that we've got demo readiness, and that's what we call it here at Union. We just don't go in a demo going, okay, let's see if they've got some questions and tell me what your pain points are. We've already kind of uncovered them. Of course, we're going to pull them out. We're not going to, through conversation, because they're the ones with the ideas, never you, if you're really going to close it, right? Let them be the ones with a creative idea of how they could alleviate their bottleneck versus you pointing it out, because that might create some friction. So that's how we prepare, for demos, both in the street, if you will, boots on the ground, and or via Zoom.
Yeah. I think what's so interesting about this, Jeff, is like, I didn't talk about this at the beginning, but one thing that always strikes me is I think a lot of agents are scared to make this transition from selling kind of standalone payments to selling, business operating systems. But I think what they miss is that there's so many great technology partners out there that are looking for distribution, that really what you need to get good at selling is demos.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, if they get you in front of, I don't know what your closing rate is, but I mean, I would imagine if they get a qualified business on a demo with Union, I would imagine there's some significant percentage chance that they're going to walk away with a deal. You know what I mean? They just need to get the technology partner in front of the merchant, right?
Sure. And they want to feel good. They want to make they're the ones that handed it to us. So we don't want them to feel like they gave it to somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. Like we make them, the agent, look, the credibility is instant, because it really is a partnership.
Sure. Okay. So now we'll skip on to probably in my opinion, at least, one of the biggest reasons that agents stopped selling restaurants on point of sale. And that is the installation. So inevitably they would get stuck with this, ridiculous installation process that involved, cables and, all kinds of incredibly complicated things. Inevitably, many things would go wrong. They would look stupid. They would lose the account. And then all that time was for nothing. Or a best case scenario, they get the account, which means they've invested like 2-3 weeks of their life. And then they get the account, and then they get a call once every day for the next 3 months about the thing that the merchant is upset about. So talk about how Union maybe does this a little bit differently, especially with these really big businesses where the stakes are pretty high.
Yeah, and I see that even with some of our biggest competitors. I think back in the day, I was part of the offices there. Aloha did it right. They had venues coming in for training. You wouldn't get everybody. Some of them were hungover when they would come to the office for training. But at least they would come in, right? There was some level of understanding the system before it got installed. Right. And so yeah, we do take a lot of care on that process. First and foremost is just that initial kickoff call. Like, let's get to know each other. James, obviously you made this commitment, but what is it that you need beyond, what you may have talked about with our sales engineers? Maybe there's some, gift card, or maybe there's an integration that you need with a delivery service. Whatever those things are, we like to uncover all of those so there's no surprises.
Right.
Right. The other piece that we take a lot of pride in is a network. And I'm sure that's where the cabling came into your earlier conversation. That is an absolute mess. And often when you walk into the back office of a venue, it's a beehive of wires going every which way. You don't even know what is what. So we got really, really good at not only sourcing the best network stacks, which we use Ubiquiti, which is a unified product, right? Kind of it's a standard for us. So we can get that and we can build that for them and do a configuration. If there is a large hospitality venue that you're going after, there is a likelihood that they've probably got an in-house IT team, right? So we'll also connect with that IT team before we even begin to think about an installation. Menu build, we do the full menu build. We do venue settings, employee settings. We review all of that way before we install. And then what we like to do is do My First Terminal. Right. And that's a terminal that's shipped out to our venue about a week and a half before they install, which allows them to play on it, which is incredibly smart because you're going to get a bartender that's been there for 20 years. That's going to go through the whole menu and go, you guys missed this. You missed that. You missed this. It's always that, we've all felt it. You're there for go live and you're like, well, here's a specials menu that wasn't put in there. Right. So these are the things that we get to snuff out a little bit before the go live. And then the right venue, this is what separates Union entirely. One is that we W-2 all of our installs. So the installers that will go out to the venue are on Union's payroll. There's no third-party installation done. Our network also can be configured by Union, W-2 paid employees on that side of it as well. And then for the right ICP, depending on what their interest is on the technology that we serve, obviously NFC, QR code, guest-led ordering, all of that, right? There's a good likelihood that we'll have an account manager that's there for go live to help train staff. Now, of course, they can purchase that, but we go above and beyond with an actual account manager that manages that account post-install, right?
Right.
And then some of the things I see that are just friction points for our biggest competitor out there is just the support post install. Right. And that's, the ability to get in touch with Union support, that comes via email, either over the phone, obviously 24/7, or even text, right? Text is pretty hot for us right now. The venues that we serve are cranking at 11 o'clock at night and they can't hear anyone on the other end of that phone. The DJ's slamming, right? So just text. And so that's just an easy way to get things resolved or whatever it might be that the venue might need. Any way you can get in touch with us, we're always there 24/7 around the clock. And all W-2 out of the US as well for our support.
Yeah, I think anybody that's ever done any restaurant deals, they understand the importance of what you just said and, really taking that very seriously. And I think what's great about it is, again, I think you have a lot of alignment because it's like, yeah, these are larger volume venues. So it's going to justify that investment, to really get out there and give them this fantastic experience. So you have a long lifetime value on the account. So I love that. So before we switch over to Ben, I want to talk about Green Payments and kind of their partnership side of it. What if you have any kind of final words to the 1099 agents out there? I mean, what is kind of the role of the 1099 now as we move into this new world of integrated payments and vertical specialization? Any kind of quick thoughts here at the end that you want to share?
Yeah, we've seen so much, of the fear. And I think that's a big word, right? Where do I go as a 1099 to feel like my portfolio is mine? Right. That's the biggest one. People have just been, I won't mention any of the names, it's not fair. But so many of them, have just done things that are just probably not great when it comes to owning your book. And so we're just staying out of that space. One thing that's true to Union is that we are very, very interested in the brand space at Union, right? Selling into some of these brands and obviously offering rewards through Union at our venues. That our focus has been and it will maintain there. And we're just not in the payment space. And so I think hopefully that's a little level of comfort, for the partners to take away. Like why would Union not be interested in taking on the payment piece? Is because we're just not. We're focused in another area completely that we're excited about, right? And that's what's going to take us as a company to Wall Street, and that's what we fight for every day. So that's important. So I guess the fear would be my ask is just go for it, and you've got the engineers to back you up. We don't, when Union gets in, nobody's handing it back. Right? They're just, like we just don't see that. The retention all time high. If the win rate is awesome, get us in front of the right people at the venue, and we're going to show them a product that they haven't seen before. And that's exciting. And so in our development, I guess the last piece, James, we look to stay about 18 months ahead of the competition at all times. And I think that's just something that we all should be mindful of.
Yeah.
What's coming up behind us and who's going to take our, take our part. And so staying ahead of it by 18 months is huge.
Right.
There are some things that we've got to, get to par at. Of course, every company has it. We're not going to be all things to all people out of the gate. Development is incredibly expensive and very time consuming. But what are we doing different? Like, I'll give you one example. Last one. I am so tired of walking into Walgreens, and having put my number for my account, and it's saying, hey, $5 you want to apply it towards your transaction. The cashier literally asked me if I want to apply my $5 worth of earned points to my bill. Why would I not? Am I going to save that for a rainy day? Like, loyalty should be frictionless. It should be automatic. Right. So those are the things that we're working with our advisory board. Again, that's about 50 to 60 operators throughout the country that are part of that board. Going, what do we need to do just to make this frictionless? What would it look like for you? What's a VIP mean? What about a 2-time multiplier? Like, what some of these things that are, we're excited about, that we're launching through the mobile side of our business, that's just going to take it to the next level. So what you see here at Union is what you see today. We're 90% badass and 10% open for the future. And that future, we're being very strategic and very specific of what it is that we're going to go out and build to maintain that 18-month runway and just be completely badass. So that's Union. I'll leave that one alone.
That's great, Jeff. Thank you so much. While Ben is getting his camera and mic on, I want to mention a couple things real quick. First of all, for those of you that are like, wow, this is awesome, I want to learn more about this. First of all, if you want to post your question now, we're going to do a Q&A session here in about 10 or 15 minutes. The other thing is, if you want to take a minute right now, and I'll pull a slide up in a minute to show this, but if you want to take a minute right now and head over to ccsalespro.com/high volume, all one word, all lowercase, ccsalespro.com/high volume. You can actually register there for a free course. Jeff and Ben both actually came out to Pennsylvania in the middle of nowhere to my studio, which is great. We had a great day, great time. And we shot a training course for selling high volume hospitality venues. And so Jeff alluded to some stuff there that you're probably all kind of scratching your head, like, wait a second, what is he talking about with rewards and like pushing brands? And like, it's very, very cool. Okay. I'm not getting into all of it right now, but one of the reasons I love this deal so much is because, as Jeff said, Union has these like other revenue drivers and like other models that they're super excited about, that they're building on top of their venue operating system, that allows Green Payments to work and take on the payment side and provide that experience for 1099. So again, it's ccsalespro.com/high volume. With that being said, Ben, I'd love for you to kind of introduce yourself. Tell us about your position and what you do at Green Payments, and then maybe just give us a little insight on why Green Payments is still so in on the 1099 channel when we see a lot of the industry kind of running in the other direction right now.
For sure. So Ben Ross, I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Green Payments. And, my focus day to day is a lot of this kind of stuff, finding good solutions that our partners need and making sure that our partners have those solutions day in, day out to be able to go and sell. And the reality of our business, it's evolved a ton. And, the 1099 side is a super important piece of our business, because there's a reality in our industry that 1099 agents and independent partners are what really developed and built a lot of the sales channels, the companies that exist today. Fortunately or unfortunately, regardless, depending on how you want to look at it, and this part I think is unfortunate, the 1099 partners, eventually, as certain companies scaled and grew, they became less important, because now, the machine's in place, the engine is there, the deal flow is there. And so they didn't have that need for partners. And, ramping up new partners can be very taxing, it's very labor intensive, the training, the knowledge, especially now when you layer in integrated technology and software. There's just a lot that goes into it. So because of that, a lot of companies have moved away from the 1099 partners. On our end, we've doubled down on it because we feel very strongly that while software is what drives the end decision, what gets through the door is the relationship. And so whether it be, what Jeff had mentioned before with Union, and the reality that while they're a software company, and if they wanted to, they could, go and sell direct. The reality is the majority of their business comes through 1099 partners. And the reason for that is because for someone to change their venue operating system, and their, whether it's a high volume restaurant or any type of business, for them to change what drives their business, is a huge decision, and it's not one that you can always very easily market to. Now, you're going to always have a Toast, or you're going to have some of these big players that do it, but they've also dumped a ton of money and capital into it. And from what we see, in the end, they're just chasing something that to us is right in front of us. The partners are there. The partners want to knock on doors. They want to build, take these relationships they've developed over the years and give them a good solution to earn residual. So why look the other way? And that's just been our determination as we've kind of gone through, and it continues to be our philosophy that the partners are there. They're asking for it every day. What's a good solution I can bring to a high volume restaurant? What's a good solution? You mentioned dental practices before. What's a good solution? How can I, not lose these dental practices? And so that's where me personally and as a company, that's where we focus our day to day is ensuring they have those good solutions.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too. And Jeff's still on here. It's like it's very important as a 1099. There's a lot of like legal and contracts and terms that have to be negotiated between like a Green Payments and a union, right? Like that probably didn't happen overnight. That's a process. There's a due diligence that goes into that, and there's a liability and like, hey, we have to protect our residuals for ourselves and for our agent partners. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of the 1099s are starting to realize, many of them through bad experiences, that they may not be in the best position to negotiate a deal directly with the technology vendor simply because they maybe don't fully understand how to protect their own interests. And not even that as much as just how do you structure a deal that's mutually beneficial, that, union's excited about it, Green Payments is excited about it. If that doesn't happen, then it doesn't really matter. No, if the deal's not mutually beneficial, it's not going to work. And so I think what's so important right now is 1099s have got to start to hitch their wagon to companies that are taking technology seriously and that are making these partnerships and trying to make sure that, certain core verticals are covered with not just like, oh, well, we've got, and again, I like I'm saying bad things about Clover. I don't like hate Clover, but I mean, it's like, well, we have Clover. And it's like, well, okay, good. But I really don't believe that the Clover solution is going to be just like the game changer for 95% of the verticals out there. Most verticals are going to be going with a very specialized solution. And again, we look at something like Union. I know Green Payments, you have many other options out there for different verticals and things like that. But I just think it's very important that we're covering that. So all right, so let's talk about Union for a minute, Ben. So what has your experience been so far with Union? Maybe even give us a couple of examples of like some deals that have come through to kind of give our audience a little flavor of like how, what types of deals you're seeing that are coming through that are a good fit for Union.
For sure. So you give an example, even a place here local in New Jersey, big, rooftop bar, kind of on the Jersey Shore by the beach, high volume. But they're only open 3 in the summer. They open up more days, but throughout a lot of the year, they're only open 3 days a year or 3 nights, right? So they're open 4 to 9, I think it is Thursdays, and then Friday till like midnight, and then Saturday until 2 a.m. through most of the year. In the summer, they're open, more expanded hours.
Right.
But they do big volume, right? And it's, it's throughput. It's getting people in and out and making sure they can have a quick experience. And it's funny because the way we got there is, the owner who I've had a long, time relationship with, he was at a point, his bartender's like, look, I'm not going to come back. I can't put myself through the chaos and the busyness of summer if our system isn't going to keep up, right? If I'm moving faster making drinks than the POS is closing out a tab, doesn't work.
Right.
And that's where they were getting stuck. So in the end, we demoed Union, and full transparency, they wanted to see other solutions. So we demoed other solutions. The reality was Union won out. I expected that, but you never know, right? But in the end, they went with Union because, as Jeff mentioned, it's built for that type of establishment. So to your point with Clover, look, we offer Clover and we do a lot of Clover. Clover has a fit, right? But if you're going to get specific, there's a reality that there's other better solutions out there, and Union is a better solution for these high volume hospitality venues. So that's just one specific example. There's others where, very candidly, we had other solutions in there. Merchant was with us for many years, and that solution just didn't keep up. It didn't kind of advance, and the technology just wasn't, staying where the venue needed it to be. And inevitably, the merchant calls us because we've got the relationship. We maintain a good relationship. We support them. We help them, they need help with a refund or whatever the things are that come up that we as the processor get involved. So there's an ongoing relationship there. But they said, look, I'm thinking about Toaster. I'm thinking, and then of course right away we jump on it and present Union, and we end up putting it in there. So I will say those rooftop venues, the patio bars, any of those where it's spread out, it's open, is great for Union, because with the guest led ordering and just the way that their system works, it's great in those types of environments.
Love it. That's great. Okay, so let's dig in a little bit here to kind of the nitty gritty. So I'm a 1099 agent. I've never heard of Green Payments. I've never heard of Union, but I know a high volume hospitality venue that I want to approach. What do I do? Can you give us some information about where I would go to learn more about Green Payments and get signed up, and then kind of what's that process to then be able to offer a Union?
Sure. So our website's greenpayments.io. So it's greenpayments.io, like Indigo Olive. You could also go to earnerresidual.com. Either way, if you go to greenpayments.io, you'll go to the About section, but earnerresidual.com will bring you right to the details. Once you see that, we're going to get on a call and we'll talk you through each side of it and set up a one-to-one demo and a conversation around Union specifically. But really, that first conversation with the merchant is very similar to any new merchant, regardless of the vertical, but it's getting an idea of how they're set up currently, what's great about how they're set up, and what their pain points are. And both are important, right? We want to know what they like about how they're set up, because we don't want to just fix all their problems, but then they have something that they really love about their current setup, and we now don't deliver that because we're not realizing. We're thinking, hey, we fixed all your problems, but we forgot about what they like.
Yeah,
so
you created new ones.
Well, correct. Yes, that's exactly it. So both of those things are important. And then I will say getting the statements are important too. And I know this is a big conversation I have often with agents and partners, especially newer ones to us. It's like, I never get statements. I just do dual price and that's all I care about. I'm doing dual price and it's great. But we believe strongly in getting statements because it gives you it proves out that the merchant's willing to follow a process. And in a big venue operation, a bar that's doing 500,000 to $1 million or several, multiple millions a month, if they're not willing to give you a statement, there's a disconnect. And so, in the end, what's going to happen is they're not going to be willing to give you a menu, and they're going to expect you to show up and you to take their menu and type it out or figure it out. And some of that we can help and support if we know the merchant's got some maybe deficiencies in their team and we need to help fill some gaps. All that stuff can be worked through. But if they won't do something as simple as give you a statement, typically there's going to be other issues that'll come down the road. So I will say, in that first conversation, it's identifying what their pain points are, identifying what they like, get a statement, then come back to our team. We'll then actually evaluate it and say, yes, Union's the right fit. You may already know it if you know all the solutions we work with and we offer. By that point, you may be able to identify yourself. If not, you'll work with someone on our team to go through it and say, you know what, Union is the right fit. And at that point, we'll jump in and we'll set up the demo, and whether that's in person or virtual, and then go from there.
Yeah, and again, I think it's interesting talking about the what you're playing is this part in the middle again of like helping the 1099 because I think it is overwhelming. I was talking to my team about this the other day. Like I've been out in the field like making some content. Some people have seen some videos I've been doing lately, and going out and selling a restaurant and things like that. And it's like it is overwhelming when you actually get out in the field. And even for me, I mean, I've been in this industry for a long time, and I know all the big players. And it's like going down the street and like, okay, I got to be an expert on all of these businesses and like a vertical specific solution for all of these businesses. And it's like, that's just not really feasible. And I think, as I just discussed with Jeff, it's kind of like, ultimately your job is really more selling the demo, selling the interest to say, hey, we work with and it's interesting too, because it kind of goes back to that broker pitch that I used to use way back. It used to be, I was the broker for all these different processing companies. And I think that model to some extent is no longer viable. It's not optimal in my opinion, because, now it's not about, well, do I have multiple different processing companies? Now it's about, I need multiple technology solutions, but hopefully with one processing company, because there's all this complexity and you don't want to multiply the complexity. Like when it's like, well, I have this solution with this processor and this solution with this one. Well, now I have two different boarding applications, right? So I think what's interesting is finding the right partner that plays that part in the middle to say, okay, I come in, I work with Green Payments. I know how to walk into a business and ask them what they like, what they don't like, and get a processing statement. Like everybody on this Zoom knows how to do that at every business location, right? So, yeah. So then they bring
100%.
that
And
to
that
you
is
guys.
what it comes down to. What's that? Sorry.
I said then they bring it to you guys and you work with them from there.
Correct. And that's really the key. The key is to be the communicator, be the messenger, be the one that's guiding the merchant through the process. And, going back to, the original question you asked in the beginning was, why do we care so much about 1099 partners? They're the boots on the ground. They're the people that are going to guide the merchant that may need some help figuring out what menu and is this the right seasonal one or is it that one? There may be that extra need for someone on site. And yes, Union's going to bring a team in to set everything up and have kind of that whole implementations process laid out. But there are other steps to the process that the agent and the partner, do get involved, and we do lean on them to be that one to communicate and help guide the merchant. Merchant doesn't follow up on something. Look,
Right.
get in their ear, help move them along. So there is
Yeah.
a huge piece that's needed there. But you're 100% right. Their job really is purely be the communicator, be the messenger to bring the information in, and then let's all guide it together.
Love it. Okay, everybody. So we've got about 10 minutes left. Jeff, if you're still on, if you want to put your camera and everything on, I do want to pull this link up real quick, and then I will go to this Q&A here. We have quite a few questions we can jump in. If you have a question, just go ahead and type it out in the chat box, or if you want to put it in there's also a little Q&A tab. So either one is fine. Just put your question in there, and I will do our best to answer it. But before we do that, I want to put this link up. Very important. Head over to ccsalespro.com/high volume. Again, you can do, this is uppercase, but it doesn't matter. You can do lowercase, uppercase, doesn't matter, but just ccsalespro.com and then all one word, high volume. If you go there, it's going to redirect you to a self-sign-up link for a special training course that, again, Jeff, Ben, and I did together here in my studio. Actually, the first time I've done that in the new studio, so that's pretty cool. But definitely check that out. We talked about, Union and everything, which is pretty cool. Jeff, I think this one would go to you. What about success in placing Union in breweries? Any breweries? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, great question. And yeah, so breweries obviously sell alcohol, but specific to beer only, right? And homegrown beer, typically not national brands, right? So I would say that, strategically, if the brewery makes sense, based on location, we would place it. And of course, we have placed breweries within portfolio. But again, that first kind of prereq would be full liquor license. Business, got booze, got business, that would just be another POS customer for us and really wouldn't be an opportunity for us to bring a VOS into their ecosystem, which, again, allows guests to take advantage of rewards through Union, through the venue operating system. So yeah, of course, strategically, it could be a big name in town and have a whole lot of connected to it. We're not going to turn down, but ultimately our ICP would be a full liquor license customer.
Got it. Okay, cool. And then I'll throw this question first at you, Ben, and then you'll see Jeff's thoughts as well. Just some people asking about differential pricing. So, are you actually seeing some success in terms of, hey, here's this business, they do $250,000 a month in volume. Are they going for dual pricing or some kind of differential pricing?
Sure. So I would say, at this point, it's probably 70-80% of the new venues that we're doing. And even a lot of ones that we've had on for years, are converting over to it. So it's definitely a big part of it. I think, as we've all seen post-COVID, more and more people just got comfortable with it. They understand there's a value. They understand, hey, I can keep raising my prices or I can offer this differential pricing and give the customer a choice. And while it took time, as we all know, for it to click in for many people, at this point, it's almost, it's without question, the majority of hospitality venues are doing it. And it's a large majority. So yeah, it's definitely a big part of what we do with Union.
Yeah. And I think before we go to Jeff on this, for those that maybe aren't as familiar with the math on this stuff, like $250,000 a month, right? Margin on that's going to be, maybe you go a little below 399, maybe you go 3.5, but you're talking about 150 basis points of margin at some kind of reasonable residual split that you're going to negotiate with Green Payments. You're talking about a 4,500 a month, margin to work with. So that's a lot. It's definitely worth stopping into the various high volume hospitality venues near you to see if it's a good fit. Jeff, what are your thoughts on this? What have you seen from the larger portfolio perspective? I know this is maybe even a little bit of a newer feature for you guys as well. What are you seeing as far as adoption with dual pricing and things like that?
Well, two things. One was there was no longer, any margin in hospitality when people were selling Interchange Plus.
Right.
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 Then this beast came out called Toast that everybody was comfortable with 3.25% overall effective rates all of a sudden. When we were getting nickel and then dimed, and your Interchange Plus and your residual based on that down to 5 cents a transaction, period.
Right.
wasn't paying the bills, so you had to do 100 of them. So
Right.
anyway, so sitting on this side is kind of fun to
Mm.
watch, to see the actual financial opportunity,
Right.
for the ISO channel. But yeah, we are seeing that a lot of these larger establishments, are really taking notice to it. I think what we saw in New York City, which was pretty unique, was the 10% COVID surcharge.
Right. Right.
And once the city said it's okay to do that, then the venues got a little bit more comfortable with what they were going to be doing on the credit card side. So I think that just kind of unleashed the beast, if you will. And so we're seeing probably about 70% of the venues that we bring on
Wow.
going. Yeah. So, and you're talking, some high volumes that are doing it. So
Right. That's
uh,
insane.
pretty
Wow, that's
awesome.
crazy. It's really crazy too, because like I don't know about you, Ben, but like when I think back to just like 4 or 5 years ago, if you'd have told me that high volume venues doing $250,000 a month were going to go for like some kind of dual pricing thing, which back then it wasn't even called that, but like I would have been like,
Sure,
that's
and not just high
insane.
volume, high end. I mean, a
Right.
lot of these nice steakhouses and
Right.
super like very, just high end places. I mean, you could
Right.
call it what you want. That's what they are, right?
Yeah.
And they're still that they prefer it because they know, look, their produce costs there, right? I mean, everything's gone up. So even though sure, they still have margin, but you know what? They also have massive rents a lot of time, right? And their
Right.
overall experience, their labor costs, everything has gone up dramatically. So
Right.
for them to be able to say, hey, you choose how you pay. You want the rewards
Right.
points, you want all those benefits, your
Yep.
call. If not, then you have cash.
Right.
And that's fine too. We're
Right.
happy because that's the other thing. A lot of these venues pre-COVID were used to having a lot of cash coming through the door. And
Right.
now, that they don't because so many people have moved to credit cards in general, put aside
Right.
fuel pricing. And so that is definitely another piece that's helped to,
Yeah.
to motivate them.
I'm going to answer this one question real quick. So I've had several people talking about the white label training. So for those of you that are already subscribed, like your ISO uses my statement analysis company and my learning management system and all that. If you want this training course in your learning management system, that's totally fine. All you have to do is reach out to support@getisoamp.com or support@ccsalespro.com, either one, and just say, hey, I want the new high volume venue course, in my training, in my white label training portal, and we will do that. So here's one more question here for you, Jeff. I actually have two questions, I think, but this first one from Bill: how much focus does Union place on the QR code? So talk a little bit more about kind of the puck that they tap and some of that kind of stuff. So talk about that kind of digital experience and how that plays into your
It,
overall strategy.
It is twofold. One, nobody really knew what a QR code was until COVID hit again, right? I mean,
Right.
there was a rise of QR code and app download well before COVID, and then all of a sudden people stopped. Nobody was putting any more real estate into their device. There's you had a lot of value in order to get an app downloaded on a phone, right? We don't force anybody to download an app, and I think that's the biggest difference there. Right. Even when you're dealing with an Android device, which does not play well in a QR environment, we created what's called web clips. So it allows them to still get full functionality of the app without downloading it to their personal device. So that's the first, area that we remove. Now, to Bill's question, we also position value, right? The means to the end are tapping a NFC puck, which is definitely more apropos for people to tap a puck because they understand what Apple Pay is. You double click and keep it near the
Right.
card reader. You're doing the same thing. All you're doing is tapping your device to a puck and it's pulling up a digital menu. There's a lot of things that venues go through: expense of paper, expense of changing a menu, change one item, you got to reprint the entire menu set. So that
Right.
goes away but when you do it digitally. So giving them the means to get there digitally. And so NFC definitely is a nicer means to the end. QR code kind of has a stigma, like a COVID code, if you will. But the goal is to get their guests rewarded. The how would be use NFC or QR, right?
Right.
So we're selling on value. We're positioning what a reward looks like and what a 70% ticket increase looks like. I don't know, Mr. Owner, Mrs. Owner, would you like that?
Right. You know
And
what?
you just stop there, and once they realize that
Right.
this is how we get there, it just changes things.
Yeah, so Jeff, let's keep going with that because there's also questions around the rewards program, and like we didn't really dig into that at all. We don't have a ton of
Sure.
time, but like if you were just explaining to the owner of the venue, that you have this rewards thing and they don't know anything about it, how do you explain it to them of like what is this thing, this rewards
Yeah.
program?
Yeah. So, what it is we are, physically bringing a brand value. Let's say it's Proper 12, which I used earlier. Right. So if you are a customer that's historically ordering Jameson, when you tap that NFC puck and you get a digital menu to pop up, you might see that you get $4 off of Proper 12. And so maybe you try that proper 12 shot versus getting a Jameson shot at the bar that you're at. So normally I'm pointing to the bottles that are right behind the sticks on their bar, asking if I could have permission of rewarding that bottle. The goal there is velocity play, right? They're going to sell more of that particular spirit because they're putting an advertisement, if you will, through a digital experience. And when that digital experience now has a value to it, where Union is subsidizing, if you will, $7 toward their drink, they're going to take action on it, right? So the reason why we actually bring value there is so they take action, right? And then you get the app usage and all the rest of it. So the goal there with an operator is you already have them behind the bar. We happen to be bringing some rewards where I could incentivize your guests to get $7 off of that proper 12, versus a JMO that they might normally order.
Got it. And so, and I think to further clarify without, I'm making sure I'm being careful what I'm saying here, but like to clarify it, it's like, there's this other side to Union's business, right? Where you're able to deal with the brands. And so there's this other side to your business where that $4 you mentioned that they're getting off of that drink, the establishment is not paying that $4. Union is paying that, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So that's a $14 cocktail average price in New York City. You want a Basil Hayden old fashioned, $7 being covered by Union. The customer's paying $7 and Union is paying $7 on that same tab that night, that settled that night and then funded next business day. Right. So, we're not waiting 30 days to get them their money or anything that's cute like that. Right. It's actionable on the actual tab that's being, ordered, from that guest that day.
And then I think just again, to bring this kind of full circle. So you're doing that, and why is it that program, I mean, there's benefits to that, but then you also know about how that is increasing the average ticket size for that establishment. Why and how is it doing that?
Well, so number one, everybody sells online ordering. And we know that the average increase for online ordering is 25%. I mean, you can read it in anybody's textbook. Go to toast.com right now, and they'll tell you how much the increase is for revenue when you use online ordering. It's 25%. We happen to be 28%. Are we doing things better? I don't know. But across our portfolio, I know that if somebody taps this digital NFC puck and gets a digital menu, and they can see something that they want to buy versus waiting for that incredible cocktail to come off the bar or that incredible, plate of food to come from the kitchen, and you're like, oh, what's that? I want that, right? That's how people buy. So when you can bring that, ooh, what's that? I want that to their eyes and not just read a paper menu, their purchasing is going up by 28%. Give them the simplicity of ordering on their own, at their own terms, at their own time. They're gonna order more. And then being able to just get up and leave, which is a whole nother part of, Union training, that we can get into. But, the goal is to, speed velocity for high volume bars. Well, the biggest bottlenecks are how quick does it take to get a drink on the table? And how quick can I close up my check and leave? Those are the two major bottlenecks in hospitality that we serve. And so all of that experience then creates a greater one. And when people have a good time at a venue, what do? Stay longer and spend more.
Yeah, good stuff. Wow, good stuff. Only other question here, and again, there's other questions. If I didn't answer your question, I'll make sure and get these over to the, to Ben and have him follow up with you guys. But so as far as having like recommended, hey, they're, what other venues are using Union, things like that. Obviously, we would never talk about that on a live event, but I would say definitely reach out to Ben. And maybe Ben, one more time, can you give them the URL and where they need to go if they want to learn more about selling for Green Payments? And then Katie, for you, talk to Ben and their team about that question that you had there.
Sure. So you can go to greenpayments.io. That's greenpayments.io or earneresidual.com. You can also email info@greenpayments.io anytime, and we'll get right back to you.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, Jeff and Ben, we're going to end it there, but thank you guys so much for your time today and bringing this value to the audience. Everybody that took your time to jump on today, I really appreciate it. Make sure you head over to ccsalespro.com/high volume. Check out the training course that we put together. I know you're going to find some value in that as well. And the next time you find a high volume hospitality venue, check out Green Payments, talk to them, and they'll hook you up with Union. So Jeff, Ben, thank you guys very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.